day. Because nobody was around to take me to the bathroom, so I had to. I mean, you know, desperate measures make for desperate situations. So the thing that happened, and I just want to thank three very special people that are in the audience right now. Robert Bruce Mitchell, if he's around somewhere. Alan Feller, my dear friend, and Chris Giordano, who I've known for 20-some years, and his beloved family. They were at my bedside, and they were like staples for me of food. When I came out of it, I had no memory. And I'd be on the street, and people would come up to me and say, Sandra, and it wasn't that I just did not remember their names. I had no clue what the association was. And I went through this for 2 freaking years, to the point of I still taught school. I did 3 performances in 2 years. I wrote a poem immediately after I found out that Robin Williams had committed suicide called Take a Moment to Remember. And I performed that at the American Repertory Theater. And then when Joan Rivers passed on the way she did, I was so devastated because I had had 14 hours of anesthesia. And my anesthesiologist came to me after surgery and said, do you remember anything? And I said, why would you ask me something like that? He said, because if you did, then I know I didn't do my work right. I mean, who wants to remember surgery? Oh my God. But what happened to Joan Rivers is, and I know this in my soul, they released the anesthesia too quickly. And she went into a cardiac arrest, and she should not have been in a clinic. Thus, do not go to clinics to be put under. And the doctor never called the ambulance fast enough. So that poem was written instantaneously through me. I give the credit to where it's due, to my higher power. And it was called A Legacy, a true tribute to Joan Rivers. So these last 2 years have been very difficult, on and off depression. And June and July were extremely excruciating because I want to share something with you for a moment. I need to sit down. And I figure because a few people canceled, I can take a few minutes more. We could be 95% healthy in our psyche. Remember this. But if 5% is unresolved from early childhood, I guarantee you, whatever you call the word God to be, the spirit and the light will go right into that when you're ready to finally handle it and hone it and bring it up. And you will have to deal with it, with yourself. God is there, whatever you want to call God to be. I don't want to step on any toesies or get into any religiosity, but the truth of the matter is you have to do, it's just like you said, you have to love yourself. And I had to, when I was in my 30s, I was at a friend's house in Capitol Hill. They were making dinner, and I decided to just sit on a love seat and meditate. And all of a sudden, the screen opened up, and I went back to my infancy, and I saw myself in a crib. And I remember my mother was going to take her mother and have her move upstairs. But instead, after her surgery, she passed on. And so my mother's brother and sister moved up. Well, she had 4 brothers, and her youngest, Jack, he was a pedophile. And at 33 years young, I was able to see the scene finally. I never knew why I couldn't stand him. He sat across from me every day at the dinner table. I could not tolerate the man, besides the fact that he smoked at the dinner table voraciously, and he was very rude. And he'd always try to buy my affection by buying me jewelry or diamonds because he was a diamond cutter. Well, that didn't cut it with me. And I saw that my mother said, Sandra, Mommy's going for groceries, but Uncle Jack will be there for you. And she left, and he pulled down the crib and unzippered his jeans. And you know, a baby is very pure. Yeah, whether you believe in reincarnation and believe that you were the serial killer from God knows what Asian country, it doesn't matter. A baby is very pure. anything impure that comes into a baby's psyche, a red flag goes off in that baby. And all of a sudden that baby's brain gets short-circuited because they sense something is wrong. And that energy now turns against itself. And I had had self-hatred. Not the entirety of me, but that particular sector of my psyche. And that's what I had to deal with. And I really had to deal with it this summer. Luckily, my mother forgot something. She forgot one of her credit cards or whatever, or her wallet. And when she came in, he immediately pulled up the crib and pulled himself back together. If not, he would have literally climbed in. And she decided to stay. But I had already been touched. I had already been forced my little pink hand to touch. I already was affected. So this summer, in June and July, I had to really, really get in touch with some unresolved hatred. Because I could never figure out why I would scratch my scalp as a teenager to the point of making blood and bleeding. And that's exactly what I did for 2 full months until I worked it through. And then one day, like that, the juice was turned off and my soul was restored again and I could move on. So I want to say this to you before I even begin. Never, and when I say never, and I want you to use this word with me, never give up. Because I'm telling you right now, there will always be light at the end of the tunnel. You will get assistance. Someone will be sent to you. Something will happen. You are never to give up. Your life is a gift. And it's not just a gift for you to perform to make yourself feel good. Your life is a gift because we are here to give and to serve each other for the glory of whatever you believe God to be. So, you have to bear with me. I'm going to use a little bit of paper tonight because this particular vignette that I created, I just created it a week and a half ago when I met Chuck. And I have to confess I was a thief. I was in Spot and his flyer was up and I couldn't find a pen. And what did I do? I went, gee, the date is really coming up pretty fast. I think I'm just going to take it. And I did. But I have texted in the last 24 hours over 100 people regarding this particular event. And many people could not come due to the duration of their jobs going into 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock. But their heart is there and they know that this is one of the few arts organizations that is not just for scholarly art, not just for the grandizement of making something beautiful, but it is grounded in what I have been looking for forever so long, in social issues. Just like Burning Books is on Connecticut. They deal with social issues. Because art for art's sake is not enough. Anyone can paint a beautiful flower, but what does a flower have to say unless it's been stepped upon? Then it really has something to say. Then it has a social awareness issue. So, tonight, if it is considered night, I don't consider it, but whatever, I created an event called Soulful Sister Silhouette Sings Medley of Blues, interwoven with performance poetry grounded in the theme of sexual abuse and abuse in general. And before I begin, I just want to say this. Regarding abuse, abuse does not have to be blatant. It does not have to be overt. Abuse can be like a dirty house, or someone who, what do they call the word when you collect and you collect and you collect? A hoarder, thank you, a hoarder. Hoarder. You know, it could be just a few things, or you haven't dusted for a while, and then 6 months later, a year later, 2 years later, all of a sudden, you can't even move. Your things are literally moving you out of the house, or your house is despicably dirty. Well, this is the way it is with abuse. People get involved in relationships. No one knows in the very beginning whether it's healthy or not, unless, you know, someone just really pours hot water over your head, or does something so obvious it makes you want to run the other way. But it's never quite like that. It's more like a very subtle Pandora's box. So I want to say that this is not just for those who've been sexually abused, whether it's been by a father, a mother, a boyfriend, whether it's been incest or something else. This is for all the different forms of abuse. When I was in 6th grade, I had an English teacher, Miss Scott. She was 6'3". She belonged to the giraffe family. She looked like a long giraffe. She was from England. And my parents didn't know how to bring us up properly, so they gave us like concentrated oranges, frozen waffles with, artificial maple syrup and coffee with Coffee Rich. Within 1.5 hours, I was in such a low blood sugar lag that I was just like nodding out. And she would come from behind my head, and I was not the only one. Not with a ruler. That could be even tolerable, but with a yardstick, whack over the head. Are you here with the living, Jardine? So, there are all different forms of abuse.